Hello everyone and welcome to Sage's Tabletop Table Talks. I'm Sage, this is my new tabletop, and I'm going to talk to you about tabletop role-playing games from my new dining room. Last time was from my kitchen, but you didn't really see much. This is my dining room. Oh, you can see my fedoras back there behind you. Anyway, yeah, I got a bunch of them. Anyway, so sorry if the acoustics are a little off. Well, like we just cleared it out, so we might need a couple more pieces to absorb some of the echoes in here. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about tabletop role-playing games. There's a lot of talk about tabletop role-playing games, about, encounters. And first of all, what exactly is an encounter? Which is, I think, any time where the players engage in game and jellies. So this cat here, she leaves me alone all week until it's time to record, and then all of a sudden she is like right up my butt. Anyway, so anytime a player has a problem they have to overcome in order to move forward in the game. That's probably not even a great definition. Progressing the game, it's a challenge that the players are trying to overcome to progress. I don't think they necessarily have to overcome it, though, and we'll kind of get into that. So we've done some talk about combat encounters, how to balance them, what they mean, how to do things with them. But I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about non-combat encounters. Whether they're role-play, exploration, skill challenges, whatever. There's a lot of different ways I've seen them handled, some better than others. Dungeons & Dragons, even in 5th edition, has always struggled with non-combat. And it's something I've actually talked about before, and it's something that actually bothers me, this discussion about D&D being not being a combat... Oh, man, my little thing here is... My little soul patch here is a little off. I'm going to have to... a little bit before my next video. Sorry. But anyway, so... the discussion about D&D being a non-combat game, and the problem is, you open the book, anywhere in the book, like, there's a 90% chance you're going to get a rule that's about combat, if not an exclusive combat ability, or rule, or whatever. So the game is a combat game, and it has forever and a day kind of struggled with the non-combat stuff. Skills in every edition except 4th edition, and we'll talk about 4th edition here in a bit, have been just a very binary, okay, the door is locked. Okay, I roll my lockpick skill, or tool master, whatever. Fucking, these tool masteries in 5th edition are the fucking stupidest shit. I hate them so fucking much. They are literally just skill checks with an extra level of bookkeeping you've got to handle. It is the dumbest shit. D&D creators, when you release the next edition, get rid of these tool masteries and just give us make them skill masteries. Get rid of dumb shit like carpentry kits and just make it a fucking skill. It is so stupid. It is such a stupid design. But yeah, every edition has kind of had this thing where it's like, okay, but so what happens if you're, gosh, Jelly wants to be a star so bad. I'll have to put you in the next Saturday video. So the, comes down to what happens if you fail that skill check. So you're trying to unlock a door. What happens if you fail to unlock that door? Well, the door doesn't get unlocked. Okay, so now you as the DM, how do you handle that? Do you just let the players kind of continue on? Do you stop and try to let them come with another way? And there's a couple ways to handle it. For example, you could be like, okay, well, the door doesn't unlock, but you can still try to force it open with a strength check. But now all you've done is just put another roll involved. And a number of games I've seen treat skills and combat with about the same set. One of my favorite games of all time, Danger Patrol, does that. I don't love it. I don't hate it, but I also think that there's more elegant ways to do it because, and I think Danger Patrol does in a little bit struggle with the investigation scenes over the action scenes, because the game's kind of very actiony and fast paced, and it kind of feels a little sluggish when you're doing the non-actiony stuff. And it is very much because it's played out like an action scene, but without like the wildness of an action scene. And I think that's at the core what we're looking at. Watching John Wick beat the crap out of 15 mooks is exciting and it's fun, but it's exciting and fun in this kind of adrenaline, pump you up, hype man kind of way, versus watching him try to negotiate with one of the members of the high table, which is interesting in a different way. It's still fun, but it's fun in like a tense kind of way. Like, what's he gonna do? What's he need to do to get out of the situation? Versus watching him karate chop a dude in the throat. And I think that's why treating combat and exploration and roleplay in these, or not roleplay, I'm sorry, I made the mistake, and social interaction the same way fails, because combat isn't exciting in the same way that a tense negotiation is. But how can we make non-combat encounters, exploration, or social interaction encounters better? And the honest way to do it is fail forward. And I know there's a huge contingent, especially the OSR, which are kind of my self-proclaimed enemies, because I think that there's a lot to be learned from old games, but they're learning the wrong lessons. But there's this idea that if you fail, like you're trying to do a lockpick, and you fail to pick the lock on the door, well, if you fail the roll, you still manage to pop the lock, but in doing so, you create a new complication. Maybe the sound of the click causes guards to be alert. So now there's a new complication added on top of the lock being. No, jelly, no. On top of the lock being picked. Now, a lot of people don't like that because the idea of spawning infinite bears, where every skill check has the possibility of just spawning an encounter, but the players don't know how many encounters there are that need to be spawned. So why on earth does it matter if there's an extra guard or not? Like, unless you explicitly say that they know for a fact, due to some kind of spying technique, that there's only 6 guards in the building. They don't know if there's 6 or 8 guards in the building. You could throw 2 guards at them, or, there's other things you could do, like maybe the lock, you unlock the lock, but there was a trap there you didn't know about, so you accidentally sprung a dart trap that just deals a little damage or something. And that's kind of thing. One of the other things I actually really like some modern games doing, which is if you fail a roll, so let's say you're doing something like that, and you fail that lockpick roll. Well, okay, maybe that door stays locked, but you end up getting a fudge point or fate point or whatever you want to call it, a beanie, to be used later on in the game. So you still have to figure out another way around this locked door, but has given you a tool to use later on in the adventure to help you prevent this failure again. And it absolutely is something that is kind of a problem, is, you get those nights where there's nothing but bad rolls. And yeah, they can be fun stories sometimes, but a lot of times they are just really demoralizing to a player to just fail and fail and fail and fail. And maybe the character does have 3 really stupid failures that just absolutely fuck his head up. But but with those 3 failures, and it's a very cinematic thing to do, Even though he's failed 3 times to do this thing, Jelly, stay off the table. You're not even allowed on the table. Come on. Even though he's failed 3 times, now he's built up this pool of inspiration, basically, for those of you who play only play 5th edition. But he has this, and a lot of games let you actually bank more than one inspiration or edge or Benny or whatever you want to call it. So now at the big climax, even though he's kind of stumbled his way through, he all of a sudden now is super effective because he's able to get these banked inspirations to give him some extra bonuses. It was poorly executed, but I think Dungeons and Dragons. Ow, Jelly. Stop that. I think Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition had a really interesting system for this stuff called skill challenges. So the idea of the skill challenge is that, okay, so you have this thing, like let's say you're at I think skill challenges are a bit overused, but some examples of a skill challenge, like let's say you're at a masquerade ball and you're trying to accomplish something like getting a certain character out or getting some information. I know a lot of players didn't like you did this by initiative, but I think that I think you're wrong. I have no problem with the fact that it was done by initiative. Okay, so you're at the ball. Everybody roll initiative. Okay, so now in initiative order, players are making decisions. Okay, I always use a sinking ship as an example. So you're on a boat, the boat's sinking. What do you do? Oh, because I think it's a good one. Okay, so players roll. Okay, Rogue, you go first. What are you doing to try and what are you doing to try and fix this problem? Okay, so the rogue can go, okay. I am going to start trying to help people get to lifeboats. Okay, so he can roll whatever check he needs to roll, whether it's a persuasion or a navigation check, or even dexterity check. You can be like, okay, so I'm going to start directing people toward, and you can be like, okay, well that would be a navigation check because you're trying to direct people to where to go, or you could make it like a persuasion check even, and he rolls it and he succeeds or fails, and you can even have a list. Okay, we're going to do 3 rounds, and they have to get at least 10 successes in these 3 rounds in order to do what they need to do. And the fighter can do something like say, okay, I'm just going to start bailing water because that's all I can do. And you can be like, okay, so the fighter rolls to see how much water he can bail. And you go, okay, so that succeeds or fails. And the problem with 4th edition was it would be something like, okay, players, roll one of these 3 skills. And if the player wasn't trained in that skill, there's just nothing they could really do to not hurt the party. But I think if you leave it open-ended and allow the players to creatively come up with a solution, be like, okay, what are you doing? What do you want to do? And maybe the player is attempting to do something, but he probably wouldn't actually be that helpful. You can still let the player roll and make that a neutral roll, or maybe just set that particular DC considerably high. Like if the player was like, oh, I'm going to try and push objects in front of the holes to make a makeshift seal, like that wouldn't really work. That water's just going to keep pouring in through and it's going to push stuff out of the way, but you can try a strength check. The DC is going to be ridiculously high. You don't have to tell them what the DC is, as the DM, of course. You don't even have to tell them if it succeeds or fails, which actually I think works really well for these skill challenges, because you can say like, okay, you start bailing water. And you can give them hints like, you notice that the water's starting to enter this room a little slower than it had been, and it can kind of give the players a hint that maybe what they were doing was starting to work. Or you'd be like, you start pushing chests of drawers in front of this wall, but don't notice any change in the water level rising. Things like that. You don't have to be like, you succeeded, you failed. Another player can be like, I'm going to, do a performance check to try to calm everybody down so we can get them to the lifeboats in an orderly fashion. And that's not, you can do it with all kinds of things. You're at a masquerade ball, and the goal is to, let's say, cause warring houses, tensions to either rise or fall. And you can do things like have a player be like, I'm going to start spreading rumors, or, maybe one player is going to, start maybe a small fight that would cause a distraction that could let another player, maybe sneak something into somebody. All right, he's like, I'm going to sneak a letter into this character's pocket, and that would be like incriminating evidence, and then maybe a fighter could be like, okay, well, if you're going to do that, I could start a distraction that would make it easier for you to do that. And even that might not be a success. If he succeeds, you might lower the DC on that. But kind of just give the players like, okay, here's your task, and let them go in order what they would try to do to complete this task. It wouldn't work on a simple task like I want to open a door. I want to, pick a lock. I want to disarm a trap. I want to, just, get a quick peek ahead to see if there's an ambush ahead. So for small things like that, you would just want to let the players let the most competent player do maybe one or two skill rules. But like especially things that involve investigation, extremely complex social things, like major disaster issues, like if there's a fire started in town, maybe let the players like, oh no, this building's on fire and there's a huge fire spreading. Let the players play around and let them kind of figure out how they're gonna stop the fires, or get people back, whatever. So yeah, I think the issue with the skill challenges was that there was too much emphasis on what the DM was to give the players to do, rather than letting the players creatively decide how to use their characters to interact with the skill challenge. Like I said, the masquerade ball, you'd be like, okay, you can roll performance, persuasion, or bluff. Well, what the fuck is your fighter really gonna do with those three skills? Nothing. But maybe if your fighter wanted to do, like I said, do something like he's going to start a ruckus and purposely draw guards' attention to him, that would be something he could do that wouldn't really be, I mean, you could say it's performance, but it's not really performance so much as just walking up and shoving a guard in order to get him kicked out, make two guards drag him out of the party, so that way there's two less guards watching what the rogue and the bard are doing. So yeah, the other thing to really do when it comes down to non-combat encounters is always remember to give the players some kind of out that isn't just try again. Okay, the door's locked. You can't unlock the door. And you can say like, okay, you're just not skilled enough to unlock this door. Okay, what can we do now? Well, the player can try to force the door open. Okay, well, not exactly the plan we wanted, but that's what we got. Or maybe we can sneak it through a window. Maybe we can look around for an alternate route, a secret ending. Maybe the rogue or one of the other characters can try climbing through a window. But never just stop player progress for a bad skill check. Because you just end up being like, I guess try again. Well, if that's the case, just let them. And it's okay. And I keep repeating this. And it's something I never see anybody say. But it is so... I think it's such a good idea. Let the player succeed without a roll. Don't make them roll and then be like, well, you would have succeeded anyway. That just feels like a cheat. I rolled a 1. Like, well, you succeeded anyway. Let a level 10 rogue pop a simple lock. Just let him do it. Let a level 10 fighter just smash a wall. Just punch through a wall. Just let him do it. You don't want to overuse that, but it absolutely lets them feel the progress they've made. Because I think outside of getting a handful of new abilities, one of the things in Dungeons & Dragons is especially bad about this, but a lot of tabletop role-playing games, the White Wolf games are exceptionally bad about this as well. You keep getting better skills, but you don't really feel like you have the more ability because you're getting stronger, but your opposition's getting stronger. So other than the fact that monsters have more hit points or are bigger, you don't feel that progress as much. But I think if you just let the players, let the rogue just pop a lock, let a level 10 group of fighters just beat the shit out of a couple kobolds once. Let them feel the progress that they have made. I think you would actually find players get like, let's say you don't want to overuse it, but if you do it every once in a while, you'll get that rogue, that fighter, that bard to just kind of beam a little bit, be like, it's like, I'm going to pop the lock, be like, well, yeah, you don't even have to roll. You're just too good to pop the lock. And then be like, yeah. You do it too much, it feels like you're handing them a gimme, but just every once in a while, just let them succeed without a roll. Just let them succeed. Put an obstacle in front of them. You know that it's not going to be a problem. And that way they feel like they're level 10, not like they're level 1 and everything. Level 10, but everything is scaled to the same speed that they have. Because, like I said, it feels good sometimes to just get that gimme win. But yeah, that's kind of a short episode today. That's really all I have to say about non-combat encounters. Honestly, I just want to see games bring skill challenges back. 4th edition skill challenges sucked, but there was a good core idea there that just needed some fixing. Instead of doing what 5th edition did, which was go back to the fucking stupid binary pass-fail system of skills. And Pathfinder has the scaling success system, which is better, but man, just bring... let players, let epic encounters, like a sinking ship, like a masquerade ball, like, a burning building, a forest, a magic enchanted forest that constantly changes. Let the players feel the epicness more than just, I roll a survival check. Okay, you managed to go through. Don't let them know how much success that they've gone by. You don't tell the players how many hit points a monster has left. You'll give them hints like, oh man, this monster's looking really rough. But you don't just say, oh, this monster has 7 hit points left. Unless it is something like, all right, I hit the monster. It's like, he's got 3 hit points left. You can't do less than that much damage. He's dead. But yeah, you don't just tell players, oh, 3 more hits will kill this monster. That's just not really something DMs do. And that's not something players want to hear. You don't want to just hear, this monster has 7 hit points left. You'll be like, alright, so... And it will change the dynamic. Be like, okay, monster has 7 hit points left. Hey, what's your weapon do? 2d6 plus 5 damage. Okay, so you attack this monster. I don't need to waste my energy bolt on this monster. I'll attack that other monster instead of like, this monster looks like he's really hurt, and be like, all right, I'm going to take him out and there'll be one less to encounter. Because if you know that information, it changes the dynamic. And the same would be true if you did skill challenges. Don't treat that social encounter, because I've seen a couple games do this where like social encounters involve characters rolling skill checks against each other to do social hit point. That's so boring. Like, I know effectively it's similar to a skill challenge, but it just feels so lifeless. Like, let's be honest, combat in D&D isn't really that great anyway. Why are you trying to mimic it in that skill challenge? But anyway, that's all I have to say for this video. I had another video to record here soon. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.